Our day starts us at USDT.D. This is a look on the monthly chart for USDT.D. It's always a great thing to remind ourselves of this very large curvature on USDT.D. I have a top. This is going to be our parabolic top up here. Our bottom will be about right here. If we take this top and we duplicate it to the lower side, about as accurate as we can, and we bring it down to the lower side, it's going to be somewhere here. Now let's just double check this. When we move our mouse and our crosshairs, if we bring it to the first one, they should line up pretty close, and they do. For me, that's going to be approximately 3.54%. I'm going to be paying attention to that area. I'm going to bring up a picture of these. Another thing we want to do is we want to read much of the action that's happening within these oscillations. It can help us give us good timing of the market. Even though this is we've moved down to a weekly chart, we want to keep in mind any of the major energy that's been happening within these areas. And one of the things I'm looking at is the wick match in these areas here, where these wicks match, and somewhere about the core we have a bounce here in this area, and then as they come down, there's a vortex area that was around December and January. And since we're adjusting this slightly, what I'm going to do is fade this away because it basically loses some power over time. I want to make sure that I'm not putting too much weight. If I'm looking at flats, and flats are important, but price stops respecting the flat, we're going to place less importance on those flats. Right now, a flat that still may be in play is this flat right here, closer to 6.5 to 6.39%. In our previous large leg up after hitting the target in March of 2024, prices moved up to here twice, 6.7, 6.5, and then the lower area was broken, something like this. And these weaknesses started appearing, price fell. Now we're looking at one more weakness and one more move up. And I'm left with a move up, like something like this. And the only area I really have that I'm really thinking is this angle would reveal some weaknesses. Now when this chart goes down, our cryptos move up. So we're going to remember that this is more likely to be a bullish season. And this was the close for April. Here is the the close for the week of April 21st, and the close for the week of April 28th, which is just this past week. And sure enough, as I said, we stopped right on the underside of this new target that appeared, and you can see that we're right on the underside of that area. So what's more likely to happen next is that the candles will reverse, and already we're starting to see that this candle is moving down, and that's going to mean that cryptos are going to be looking bullish during this season while we're coming down to our next target. And our next target is 4.82 to 4.70. So it's during this time that we want to actually be a little bit bullish for cryptocurrencies. All right. The other thing I'm looking at in this area is possibly the core moving up along this area, and that would put us hovering over a vortex window that we seem to be just leaving. It's still on the board, but we're over that area, and if we come down here hard, we're going to still have a lot of supports somewhere around 4.49. If I move it to this month, maybe it's instead of 4.9, it's going to be 0.4.50. So that's something I'm looking at. And then finally, the last one I'm looking at is a multi-touch flat. If we look carefully, the wicks here in this area in January 2025 are going to be somewhere about in the core area here. And so that's going to put me somewhere about the same area. So I'm going to stretch that out, and the numbers are 3.81 to 3.76. So over the next few months, I'm going to be looking at these areas mostly to give me a good idea of where the bounce on USDT.D is most likely going to be if we're bouncing anytime soon. Let's go to now a daily chart on USDT.D. And we can see that it's looking like nice, smooth, round action as we're respecting the underside of this target. And we hit it once, we hit it twice, and it's looking like nice round action here. Take a look and see if there's anything revealing that I can catch in the volume. I got the high volume on the underside, yet we're only going up and to the right and not moving past that target. So this might be a good push and a good pushing volume back from April 22nd this month, just right before I was going on vacation. So yeah, that's what I want to look at in this area. And that's about all I have that I want to see. Followed by that ultra high volume near the top before the weakness. We can read this now in context. This is going to be some dumping of this to put this back in here. So we can see that dominance has now more valid reasons to stay down for a little bit of time. If we come down here, we can start drawing maybe a parabolic to the upper side here. If we're drawing only the straights here, we can see that this is going to be an area that should be where a possible health emerges, but because of the targets, I'm still in the camp where I'm going to be looking to find a proper support before I look to come up anything. So if this still comes down in this area, I'm going to be drawing a parabolic that looks something like that over time. But right now, that's all I'm going to draw. Something like that. Okay. And I'll leave this like that. Okay. All right. So for right now, I'll fade this away. We don't know when the top will be, but most likely after we hit another support. So where I'm going to be looking, and the whole thing is still showing that weakness. Therefore, when this is going down, we want to be bullish crypto. Okay. All right. I'm going to pull up XRP. Okay. After our last bounce on the support, does XRP have what it takes to bounce out of its most recent watch line? Here's our big watch line. I drew it based on the wick area and the core area. And that angle is a very strong angle. Even on the underside, you can see it's reverberating quite nice. And if we were to draw this as a mid-phantom, it'd be approximately 50% in the way here, which is going to put more weight on the top. So we can see that this would be the watch line slash key angle. So let's put KA slash watch line. And it's going to put some more reinforcement on this. Then let's label some of these. The middle one, let's give it the mid-phantom color. It doesn't need to be so thick here. MP for mid-phantom. And the lower phantom, I'm going to put about right here. And if you were not catching this, you could do this as reverberations, but it would still be the same story. And that's going to put a lot of weight on me for the top for this pot for the top side. If I keep seeing the same angle being strong, I'm going to pay attention to the angle by which it was created. That makes sense? And because of that, if XRP is getting pressure on the underside of this area, I'm not going to be super bullish XRP until I'm able to more properly clear it. And if it's going to clear it this week, the week of May 5th, and today's only May 7th, I'm going to be looking for it to clear $2.40. So once it gets above $2.40, we have a chance. But right now, our current price is $2.13, and we're playing down here a bit. And still expecting, if we can't clear these tops in these seasons, I'm going to be expecting us to get back to the 170s, even possibly 165. And the reason is because when we look at this area from February 3rd to April 7th in the volume, we can see that we had a nice very close to equal volume. You can see really carefully, and I talked about this the week that it closed. This candle and this candle here from 1 and 2, the volume is one of the three scenarios that we look for a continuation or for lower prices, or at least a challenge to those lower prices. Again, if we're going to be seeing those, we're going to see these types of volume. They're going to be equal to, they're going to be greater than, which is the first one, greater than, equal to, and the third one that I have and I use for you is aggregately high. and it looks something like this. And I usually try to draw it like this. And that's where the volume surrounding its neighbors is still relatively high. It would look maybe something like this, but what I'm doing is I'm comparing those volumes to the lower challenges. So if I'm comparing it to here and to here at where the support would be, if there's a scenario where there's an increase, or if there's a scenario where there's a volume is basically equal to, and this is that case here, or where the volume is still relatively aggregately high, I usually like them to be one more challenge. And if we're going to challenge these areas, the prices are going to be somewhere back at 176 or 163. And the reason for that is because if there's a buying campaign happening, and if there's buying happening at this price level or this volume zone block, then absorption needs to happen. Because when we see these three scenarios, if we see them, it generally means that absorption, and I always draw this with an A, absorption, has not taken place. Okay, so when I see, and we're looking for absorption in buying campaigns by professional money, if we don't see it take place, then generally means it's very difficult for prices to rise, even if it's being bought. It tells them that they can still get away with lower prices. It tells them they can still get away with paying lower prices. So we zoom out and see the larger game, and we say, hey, there's maybe buying happening at this lower area, which is sometimes it takes several months, sometimes several years in the stock market for certain price levels. And even in the crypto market, we can see at certain levels prices still being absorbed. When we see these three scenarios, we can assume that even if there's buying, the buying is not successful as far as the completion of the game. The absorption is not successful. They have to absorb the supply at this level. If the supply keeps getting flooded here, then it means that traders who were once trading are now despondent. They're losing money, so they're going to flood this area with supply. This is where they give up. This is where they just say, fine, I'll just take what I can get. And the people who are buying the campaign, who have to tilt the scale, they have to absorb all the supply. It's like monopoly. You have to own all the properties on that block before you're able to start building houses, before you're able to raise the price, before you're able to collect that higher reward. You have to own all the cards. It's like in professional gambling. You've seen poker players, they count cards. They have to know the count. In the beginning, there's too many variables. But once the count is in their favor, they have a higher probability that the next cards are going to be some of those cards. Now, they can lose some hands, and they can even afford to lose hands, but they already know that because they have kept track of the card count, they know that the odds are in their favor. The card counting, they have a higher probability of controlling the game when they know which cards are more likely to show up, because they know that the lower cards may have already been played. The cards that can tilt the odds against them have been removed from the game. And so now all that's left is the high probability card. So the game is now in a position where you want to bet big. The market is no different. If you look at the works from Wyckoff, if you look at the works from Gavin Holmes and Tom Williams, the late Tom Williams from TradeGuider, they speak in depth about the volume spread analysis, and they explain very carefully what happened with the syndicate traders. Is these large traders, these large institution traders, would launch buying campaigns, and it didn't even matter the news. The news could be terrible, and that was one of some of their favorite times to buy. Basically, there would be like institutions communicating with each other through the volume, absorbing the stock of a targeted stock, and they would accumulate over time, and they play this long game. And when they could see in the volume that they were absorbing the supply, then what was able to happen is they were able to tilt the game in their favor and see very large gains, because they can just immediately hold back their gains or hold back the campaign and drive up the demand for price in a relatively quick amount of time. And then they would launch a distribution campaign where they were slowly exiting, not exiting all at once as to drive the price down against them, and not buying all at once as to drive the price against their own buying. But these two principles, they would be distributing over time, and then you would see this mushrooming effect. And this is where they love to explain, the teachers, they would love to explain that this is why you would see this mushrooming effect, because there's a slow distribution that happens over time to the lemmings, and this is why we see round auction at very high price levels. When you see these, you know that there's a game that's being played against the masses. And remember, the markets are a game designed for you to lose. So we have to be careful and read in sections. We don't take every trade we see, and just because we see something doesn't mean we even take those trades. We read them in context. So right now, this is something I can see that if it's possible, these high volume areas here on the February 3rd and April 7th, they appear to be buying. We move up and to the right for a time, but we're not able to sustain. Here we move up and to the right for the time, but now as we're coming to some of these resistance areas, if we're not able to sustain, and if we come back down to these areas, most likely we're going to need to check the volume one more time, and if we see another increase, then we're going to be looking for lower prices of XRP. We're going to be looking for XRP to hit closer to maybe $1.26, $1.13 to these next targets. But if we see at the very least we're going to be hitting somewhere around the 170s for XRP sometime in the future, and then properly breaking out. And that's all if we don't break out in these seasons right now. Now right now the USDT.D is bullish, so I'm going to be looking for this to play on the higher side. I'm going to be looking at this to play near 230s, 240s. But does that mean we're going to break out in these seasons? There's not much room on USDT.D to give us evidence for a long sustained move up on XRP just yet, but we don't want to count it out. We need to be here first, but we definitely have room for a big bullishness in this area. But if we're not able to clear it before that season and XRP USDT.D hits its targets, I am going to be looking to possibly take some profits and move back in closer to the 170s, and then we'll pay attention to again what the volume is going to tell us at that time. If it's one of those three scenarios, increase, equal to, or aggregately high in the legend that I showed you guys in the previous image, then that's going to be a prime key that we need to, if it's one of those scenarios, it's going to be a prime key that we're going to be seeing the lower XRP prices at that time. And we'll read it. We'll read it when it comes. But right now it's not on the board. We're just letting you know in months in advance or weeks in advance. So what we can be looking for if we don't get that breakout in this season, which I personally don't think it's going to be enough to sustain us here just yet. So most likely I'm going to be able to pick up some XRP at 170, 176, and we'll see if it breaks out. Great, praise God. And then some people may be able to jump on the bandwagon above 240, but if it doesn't, then we're going to hit those areas. And if we do and see the very low volume and not really aggregately high volume, then we're going to assume that the prices are being absorbed at this level. And once again, you'll notice a few months ago I did a video about this particular level close to $2 and $1.90, and we picked up this area even before we were up here. So while we were still way back down here, we saw this $2.07 and $1.90. It's basically the $2 range. We picked that area and we saw support, and we were hitting that support. And I've left it on the chart for you guys to still have it, looking for this. But if this area failed, which it did, because the volume is still too high, the next support becomes down here. So I'm going to move this area down here and show you guys we're going to be looking at the volume next in the future when it comes to these areas. So we're going to be paying attention to 170s again in the future, and we're going to look at the volume over the next few months. Does anybody have any questions, comments regarding XRP? Okay. Questions, comments, XRP. Okay. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. One of those three scenarios: greater than, equal to, aggregately high, and that would mean, that would equal the supply has not been absorbed. However, if we see a no demand situation, then that would equal, or a very low demand, where when we get down here the volume is low comparatively, or aggregately low, could look like this. If we see these, then that means that the supply has been absorbed, and we'll be looking for that type of scenario. Okay, but in either case, we have not had this just yet. So those are the scenarios that I'm going to be looking at over the next few months. Okay, and we'll come back to it. Okay. All right. Let me pull up the chat. No request in the chat. If you have a request, go ahead and put it in. Let me go ahead and check my notes request. Okay. No request? Okay. Hello, Mr. Easy. Good to see you. Now's your chance. Do you have a question in the chat? No? Hey, Jason. Good to see you. Let me look at Bitcoin today. We're going to look at APTM, which is APTM. Vibrant had a request for APTM. It looks like a fairly new crypto. Type of launch coin. Not much data. This is April 10th. We seem to be going down on a nice curve. I will do the gesture analysis, but I'm going to do this on maybe a 6 or 12 hour. Start with the 12-hour chart. On a 12-hour, the candles start looking a little wonky. You know that they start looking wonky when you have an up bar that's red. I think I'll stop right there on the 12-hour chart. I'm going to perform a gesture using our double S curve. Start off to halfway from the first candle. And I'm going to include the wicks here. And something like this. Let's bring this up to the higher side as we duplicate our gesture line. Somewhere about right here. And I got one verification, so it tells me I'm doing that most likely right. Then I'm going to bring this 50% down, which is basically doubling the distance here. It's about right there. I'm eyeballing it. And it's going to give me another verification. So therefore, this area may be a breakout, but because we still got lots of pressure here, I'm going to put a little less weight on it. I'm going to put a little bit less weight on here. But if anything, it might be in a better spot. And something else I like about this is that we already hit the lower bottom here May 2nd. So it's not my cup of tea, but I definitely like that we're outside of this area, and that's gonna be a good thing. I don't have any volume on crypto.com. I'll see if I have any volume on another chart. Let's take a look. APTM. It looks like I got it on MEX, so let's take a look at MEX. I only have even less candles, and that's not going to be so helpful just yet. Fairly new crypto. And let's look at it on Bitmart. Maybe they're going to have something. Better. Okay, here's where we're going to get some of that volume. It's relatively low for a breakout. I wouldn't say it's a breakout then. I would be looking for more of a push. The high volumes in this area, on these upper bars, may actually be some profit taking. I wish I had more data for you, so I'll leave it there. I'll just go back to that. I'll take a screenshot of this area. I don't have much, especially with this new crypto, but that's APTM. Okay. All right, the next one I'll look at is ONDO. Looks like I have this one on KuCoin. Did this one quite a long time ago. Let's take a look. Let's go back to our weekly chart first. Okay, looks like back in November we hit our upper resistance, and we came to the lower area, pierced through just a little bit, and found some support in March 2025. This is where this old parabolic levels out. It's approximately back here. So this is going to be like a bit of a vortex area that has support. This sword cut, a small bounce on the sword cut before falling through. So this is I'm not gonna put too much weight on this sword cut. We'll fade that one away. Doesn't have much strength at the moment. DP projection here hit in November. This area, this angle, and the event angle are the last thing. I don't know if this is actually a breakdown just yet, but it may be. It may be the start of some of the weaknesses showing up. And for this to be a bullish season for crypto, I'm not going to put too much weight on those moments at this moment. Let's draw the watch line before we start looking heavy weakness just yet. Let me draw the watch line and then we'll see what we got. I've got this curved shape already, so I'm going to move to a 2-day chart, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the straight and the parabolic, and I probably want to be thinking the parabolic. And you can see that the straights, yeah, that's most likely going to be the case. So if I draw the straight, you can see I'm pushing up, but we're still coming back in. So there's another energy that's at work. If I bring it up to the wick side, maybe that's what we're going to be here, but that weekly chart shows me there's a parabolic at play. You can see it's curved here. So I want to be thinking parabolic longer term. I'm going to actually borrow this parabolic here, and I'm going to stretch this out towards the core and try to collect all three of these points here. Just even though there's not many weeks in just this candle here, I am going to stretch that out. Let's give that an ice blue color. And if I could label this, I would put weekly chart on here. So anytime you start seeing like the candles give you a curve, zoom out. If you see them, draw them in the longer term. So I'm going to be actually looking here. Draw those on your longer scales, like weekly and monthlies if you see them. This is strange because it shows up here, but it doesn't show up on the weekly. And I'm just going to write that in my notes. This parabolic curve does not appear, is that how I spell appear? On the lower daily time frame. Okay. Now how we can use this to our advantage is this marker here. It's going to move up and down the track, well, not up and down, it won't move backwards, but it's going to move and slide along this track. But the prices start leveling out somewhere around 96 cents. Current price is 87 cents. So somewhere around these prices, you're going to need this to break out. So if the USDT.D is bullish, you got a chance for that breakout. But we also need to remember it hasn't happened just yet. Weakness is just as underneath there as well. I would be looking to hover 96 cents. So if I see it go up to 96 cents, I'm not going to be super impressed with the USDT.D being where it's at. But I am going to be looking and saying, hey, this weekly curve is here. Now, if I hold this image, right, I'm just going to be looking at that. And then I go back to that daily chart, you're going to see that I can't really see that curve here. I see a curve, but then this one looks just round action on the bottom side. So it's going to help me highlight that I should be looking at this area here, and for that we'll give us a price marker. Here's 96 cents. So somewhere around 96 cents it starts leveling out, and there's 96 cents right there. All right, now if I know the upper portion of the curve, I'm going to duplicate this and bring this to the lower foundational area, which is right here on May 14th. We can bring it down to the lower core and wick. Let's bring it down to the core first and see if I got my support. And you can see that when I bring it down to the core area, I'm sticking out here a few times, so I want to try to bring it now to the wick side, which is right there. And this is where I get it. Okay. So this would be my key angle parabolic, although you can't label them. If we could label them, we would put it there. So maybe one day TradingView will allow us to label parabolic curves. And if I place here, this would be my source point. This would be my secondary point on the weekly chart only. This is a daily chart, of course. But if I place this parabolic on the weekly chart at those two areas, it's going to give me this third point as my verification. Or this would be my third point, sorry. If I'm doing parabolic, you need 3 points, sorry. This would be my third point, so we'll just make that the big triangle. So primary point, secondary point, third point, and then I place it here, and we'll use a different color for our placement. Then everything else is verification. That one's verification, that's a verification, and that's a verification. So now we're left with an oscillation that looks something like this, and we can see price responding much better. Okay, so therefore for ONDO, we're going to be reading this oscillation and definitely looking at that breakout 96 cents. So this lower phantom is a ghost of the original key angle. So this area here, we're just going to write PA, And it also levels out, by the way. It's going to level out on the lower side of 62 cents. So if we're looking to see the floor for ONDO right now at 62 cents, and if price starts trading below 62 cents, we're going to be expecting things to go south really quick, because it's not a healthy spot for us to be here at 62 cents. And in the meantime, around 62 cents, if price falls to 62 cents areas, I'm not going to be super disparaged. That's where we're going to find some good prices for ONDO. Okay. So that's just where we look for prices to move up, and this is where we also look for prices to move down. And then underneath here, if price is building under here, something went wrong. Most likely now this crypto is sick. So we'll know something's wrong at those areas. So we'll use this to hunt the up move. We'll use this oscillation. And the fact that the phantom is matching the upper area is going to strengthen in our mind. It's going to strengthen the parabolic. We're going to be putting more weight on that parabolic around $1 to 96 cents as it's curving down, because it still has quite a while here, or sometime in June it levels off to around 96 cents, but right now it doesn't level off just yet. All right, with that one said, if we already wanted to read any other energy in here, we can read some of the smaller stuff going on. I got a peak here, and you can see on the underside we rejected there. Now as we're coming to the bottom here, this is very little profit here if we were shorting this crypto. In an up move here, since we're already jutting out here, I'm not going to put too much weight on this line, but we can see price placing on this line. If it doesn't hold, we might be looking more to come back down to those lower areas again. So that might be something of interest for us in ONDO. And I'll bring out that leveled out parabolic somewhere here. Just as a reminder, let's bring it here. It's an old leveled out parabolic. And turn off this border here. And bring these out. 75 cents is about the round action area. And I think that's all I'm going to do for ONDO except for target system. So that's about all I want to draw for ONDO. Now let's do target system to the upside, and we'll also do it in this back area for the low side. Let's start with the back area first, from here to here. So I'm going to measure starting right here at this date of August 5th. So I'm going to start our mouse there and bring it up here. Actually, I need to pull it back just a hair. There we go. And I'm left with a big peak on this end side, so I'm going to just draw the lower one, and then this one up here. That one's already been hit. It's basically this right there, which is an old sword cut. And so I will bring that one back into play. Let's change that now to a target, and we're going to bring up the background color, and I'll give you the price for that one. Okay, we're left with $1.14 to $1.09, and I'll turn off this border there. And then I'll borrow this one and we'll bring it down to the lower side. And I'll just put this off of here. It's not an active target at the moment, but it might be something we'll look out at for. 0.5682 to 0.50. 5011. Okay, the next one we're going to do is this next segment from here down to the bottom. And that's going to put our next target in. I'll put these in ice blue. Yeah. And I have tutorials about how to do this. It's on Target System. On our lessons page, type in lessons. Otherwise, we'll do a special class again in the future about this, but not at this moment. All right, and yeah, that's going to be here. Now that we can see this, I can see our more recent target based on this area, and this area is here, and you can see price hit there just a few days ago on April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So I'm going to be looking at price in a more bearish light. We're not like sitting on top of any target. We're actually just still hovering underneath these two targets, the 109, 110 to $1 range, and that's where price is rejecting. So I'm going to be more bearish again. This one's not super bullish on ONDO at the moment, and then we'll stretch out this target to here, and we can also see it levels out as a level parabolic on the lower side here, and that's based on this original key angle here, key angle parabolic duplicated to the lower side, and that's gonna make me fade this one a little bit, and therefore I'm going to put a little bit more weight at around the 51 cent area, probably 51. Here's 56 to 50 cents, so somewhere around 51 cents, 77 cents, and 96 cents are all going to be my important areas for ONDO at the moment. All right. Do I have any other questions regarding ONDO? Okay. Going once, going twice. All right. Let's go to coin. You're welcome, Bridget. Let's go to. Okay, we got a little more time for requests, so if you have some requests, go ahead and put it in. We're coming up to the end of our session. All right. And how I'm reading Bitcoin, there was supposed to be a sword cut somewhere around here. Price played up here for a little bit, and then we played on the lower side here, and you can see that price was playing on the lower side. And then when we broke down to the lower side, we reject on the underside of that area, and that was where we were at. We had a target here, approximately at that same area where this is at, and now we can see price playing on the upper side. Now, when price plays on the upper and the lower side, and it still respects it, this is a good indication that we're actually dealing with a mid-phantom. Because in our experiences, prices with mid-phantoms act a lot like that. Now, let me give you an example of mid-phantom in action, okay? We'll use this parabolic key angle as it's just a quick example of mid-phantom. So price is oscillating in this area. Got it? We can see that price is oscillating. A mid-phantom is the halfway point. Now, however we discover, sometimes we'll discover one angle first, like either the phantom, whatever the key angle is. So if the key angle is on the bottom, the lower key angle, and we know that the mid-phantom is here, then we know the phantom is 50% the distance between here and here. Now that never changes. That's a hard rule. It lets us know where our phantoms are at and where the mid-phantom's at. You can see here, this is an example of price playing within overall oscillation where the curve's a little bit off. We're missing this just a little bit. But for the most part, we can see that this is the halfway point, okay? And the mid-phantom, you can see it does need to come down just a hair, and so this mid-phantom will come down just a hair, but just pretend it's about right there. We can see that price is bouncing on this mid-phantom on the top side here, but then it was bouncing on the underside here, and this is a good indication for us that price is respecting tops and bottoms. Respecting the mid-phantom, but yet disrespecting. And what I mean by disrespecting is it's going back and forth. It'll play on one side, then play on another side, but it still is respecting it like a resistance. And we see this all the time with mid-phantoms. Let me see if I can give you another example from something we did today. Or I'll give you another example like right here. How about here? Here's a good example. Let's take this oscillation. Let me hide these lines real quick just to give you one more example. Alrighty. We'll take price oscillating here. This is probably a good example. So I'm left with maybe a curve that's going to look something like that. Let's draw some of these big ones. I'll draw them real big just to simplify the point. Okay, so there's going to be maybe our key angle on bottom and then our phantom on top. So here would be our key angle and then here would be our phantom. Our mid-phantom is 50% the distance. It's halfway, so it's about somewhere here. And I would say it's going to be maybe somewhere about right here. An example of mid-phantom in action, I'll delete some of these just to make it that dashed. Okay, so this is how a mid-phantom would work. We can see price respecting both sides. You can see we're rejecting on the underside of these areas quite nicely, but yet we're still disrespecting it. So we're respecting it, yet we're disrespecting it like an unruly teenager. And here you can see that this is an example of price respecting yet disrespecting. So price, let's write this down. Price respecting yet disrespecting at the same time in our art is often a sign, not a sing, of mid phantoms. Okay. So this is something we can use to our advantage. Now, if you have mid phantom, then you only need one side of the equation. If I know it's the key angle, I can find out where maybe the other phantom angle is. Okay? Because it's always 50% distance. 50% on one side, 50% on the other. The only variables are the wicks, and even the wicks can sometimes easily be overcome. So if I use that angle on the wick side, I know I can add a little bit more to that side and you can see more information. For example, if I need to add this much distance for the wick side, if the wicks are matching, I can take that same distance and add that to the upper boundaries, and now I'm left with wicks somewhere here. So I know to give myself extra wiggle room so I can actually see what's something new. So I know that all within here is the resistance area, but above there is support. And you can use that to your advantage in our art quite easily, right? You can easily see how that works. So take a screenshot for your notes. If you're learning our art, this is something you can use. Now the reason I mention this is because if you find, again, lines that are respecting yet disrespecting at the same time, it's a sign that we're dealing with a mid-phantom. So let's put back on our lines and see if we can use this to our advantage. Here's a line that is disrespecting and respecting. Let's see if we can do this together as a class. Okay, here's a line. It used to be a target. It was an old flat. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we're dealing with a flat. Okay, let's clean up this chart a little bit. Let's just say we're dealing with a flat. Let's borrow this and this old area and we'll turn it into a flat. What do I do, therefore, if price is respecting and disrespecting this area? What can I do, and how can I use that to my advantage? And then how can I confirm what I'm actually looking at? Just say this flat here at 91,000. What should be my next steps? Let's hear some ideas before our class is over. Anyone have any bright ideas? 91,945. Okay, I'm left with a line like this. Okay. Nobody has any bright ideas? What should I do? Go ahead.
Duplicate the line and move it to the top and bottom energy centers.
Okay. Duplicate the line, move it to the top and the bottom. Let's do the top first, since the tops came first. So if I take the angle, this is the flat. Core or wick? Or both?
Both?
Both. They're probably both, because it looks like maybe the wick is going to be here. Let's just say, for conservative sake, we're going to be conservative. We'll just use here for now and just later on tack on our wiggle room wicks just for that. But let's just say we do at the core, okay, which is somewhere about right there. All right. Now, do I just bring this to the lower side immediately?
Measure it.
Measure it. And what would be my purpose of measuring this? What actually am I looking for if I am measuring it?
Verification.
Verification. What would indicate that I'm looking at a verification?
If the phantom line is hit.
If the phantom line is hit. That's correct. So I'm going to take this angle. I'm going to take that, duplicate that. Let's just bring this about right here. Okay. And now I'm going to draw another flat, which is because again, if we identified this is our mid-phantom, if this is our MP, and maybe this is going to be therefore our key, then 50% on this side would mean 50% needs to be on this side, correct? All right, so therefore the phantom would be brought here. Does this make sense so far, what I'm doing? So approximately here. Now what can I tack on to the bottom side?
The wick.
The wicks. That distance right here. So it's approximately that far. Let's just tack this on really quick. What do we observe? What are you guys observing? Is this still all within? Is when price came down here, were we really looking at price being weak when prices was coming down here?
No.
What were we actually looking at when price was in April?
Verification.
Okay, verification. We're looking at that extra wiggle room that's allotted to it based on these measurements. So based on these measurements, so we're left with something that looks like 50% and 50%. So again, we understand from the principles of mid-phantom, when price is respecting one side and respecting the other, yet still disrespecting, we're often looking at a mid-phantom. If we identify the key angle and we measure the distance, whatever distance that is, and we duplicate that distance and bring it to the lower side, then we're looking at the lower bottoms. Here we also remember we can tack on the extra wick space when we see it, but don't disregard the cores. The cores are should be the general area, and here we can see that price bounced here and we give ourselves an extra wiggle room and we're left with something that looks like this. So we can see that the bottoms for Bitcoin in this cases are around 73 to 77, and this is where we got our $75,000 bottom months ago. So this is why when we shorted the Bitcoin, the first short was 75. Now we can use this to our advantage because it also lets us know the total oscillation that we might be dealing with, or at least the dominant oscillation in that area. In this example, if a health is appearing here, we might be on our way back up, not just to mid-phantom, but actually to the distance up here. So we can use this to our advantage. And in our previous, if we understand that the total oscillation is going to look something like this, then we're going to be left with something that's going to have a roof somewhere about 106 to 107,000. So I think it's something about right here. So somewhere around 106 to 107,000 may be our top. Okay, so that's going to help. That's going to put us there. So that's what I'm going to say about Bitcoin. We're going to be looking for a move here and here. Okay. So that's probably going to be our next top and bottom for Bitcoin if price is oscillating in an area like this. Okay. All right. I'm going to quickly duplicate this area. Here's 106. Here's the wick side, somewhere around 109. And this is the area we found based on our measurements. And the lower side was, let's get that, 76,000. So about 76, 75K, somewhere around there. So currently Bitcoin's map will look something like that. Okay. All right, so this will conclude my thoughts about Bitcoin. Does anybody have any other questions regarding Bitcoin? Okay. Any other questions regarding Bitcoin? Okay. Let's look at Ethereum. Okay. Ethereum, after bouncing out after our target, I believe the upper oscillation is going to be important. But right now the next upper oscillation is quite high. That means if price were to go up real high today, it is possible we can be hitting somewhere around 2,486. If we take our tiger line, we can see that we're on the positive side of the tiger line. So I want to be looking for the next resistance, possible resistance based on the tiger angle. It's going to be somewhere maybe about, let's see, this high would be our next one, and then there'd be one that's a little bit based on this peak, and that's right now. So being bullish in the market, I think we're actually going to be able to get to the upper side here. So I'm not going to put too much weight on this little peak here. I will actually bring it here to that side, and then I'll give you that price. And that price is going to be somewhere around 1,982. For based on our ether right now, I'll be looking somewhere around 1,982 dynamic negative. If you wanted to add a text, we can put this in the words dynamic negative. And what that means is that I'll be looking for prices, this price of 192 to continue going down over time. Here's 185, 178 in May 26th, and all the way down here in June 27th is 1,005, and it just keeps going lower and lower. So right now, if price were to go up today, we know we're probably looking at somewhere maybe a maximum for the next more recent top of 1982. And that's where I'll stop there. I will do a target system based on this top and bottom, see if there's anything there. Let's use the second one out on the top right here, and we're gonna bring it down to the lower side right about right here, and let's see where our targets are at. We'll use ice blue for these secondary targets. You can see there would have been one here, and that means price is sitting on top of a support, so that's actually a little bit bullish. And then there's another one that's going to be, let's pick these. I'll put the big one. I'll put the two smaller ones. One up here, that's going to be closer to the upper side, 298. And then I'll put this smaller one right there. And the other one I'm going to give you guys is this one on the other side of the peak, and that gives us very little wiggle room, so we're left with maybe something like this. I'll give you those ones. There might be one up here, but I'll just give you these three and then the big one up there. So I'll mark these down with price 2,070 to 1,941, and this would be just like what we suspect, that there's not much room here, yet price is in a good spot. It's just a little bit between a rock and a hard place, gives us a vortex around the 10th of this month. So I'm not going to be super bullish Ethereum at the moment. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for me regarding Ethereum? 1,732, 1,616. That's where price is sitting on top of. I will give you these other targets, and you can take a screenshot in just a moment. 2407, 2291. All right. Let's look at United Healthcare stock. Or United Health Group. Let's look at it on the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange. Something low. Wow, very big drop from just a few days ago, 601 all the way to 300, lost half its value. What a range. What's going on here? Maybe what James O'Keefe is going to expose about Big Pharma might have something to do with this. Who knows? I can only speculate. It's got to be something powerful. Let's bring out the parabolic on this side. I'm going to duplicate it to the lower side. See if there's some kind of verification. And you see how we're getting respect on this side, but then we're respecting on the underside approximately? This might be a clue, again, that we're dealing with that mid-phantom. Okay, so today's video should probably be added to the mid-phantom supplement. When this happens, we're going to take the distance between the mid-phantom, let's make it dashed, and then this would be the key angle, and we can take that distance and duplicate it out. We're going to bring it straight down when we do, try to keep the measurement, and then we're going to duplicate the phantom side, and we're going to bring that straight down as well, approximately there. Good. And we got our verification. Okay, so this here is therefore a weakness, and if we come back up, we're going to be looking probably at the sword cut area from here. This would be some type of sword cut. And it's one of the more advanced sword cuts, but I'll be paying attention to 466 to 459. So if price comes back up, I don't know if I'm going to be looking for a full recovery. In addition to all of that, the flat is right there as well. So even though we fell pretty far, I don't think this is really going to recover in the way that we're probably going to be expecting. 459 to 454. Okay. Apart from this, if we're going to keep, we'll do a target and see about how far we can be looking to fall. Okay. We're already underneath this target here, which is going to be in the next target. I think we just hit it. It's here. Yeah, we just hit that now. Visual order, bring to front. So we might be looking for a pullback. We just hit this other target. Apart from that, the next target's on the opposite side of here. And I will give that to you. It's quite low. I don't know if we're going to get that far, but yeah, it's probably going to be the area where you're looking to get to. And this is going to be an old support. So probably this target right here is going to be more valuable to you. $280 to $260. So that would be my bet if things go south here, if you don't get the bounce. 392 to 371. Companies that have a lot of money invested in this, in United Health Group Incorporated, might be in for a world of hurt if you don't get the bounce here. Especially if it's heavy, but it's definitely an area of weakness. Okay, do I have any other questions about United Health Group?
Jason?
Yes.
Can you take a look at the volume?
Yeah, sure. If there is accumulation, let's go to monthly, maybe 2 weeks. We'll do the 2-week chart and I'll point out something for you, okay? So like we teach in our volume lessons, if this is our area where there's possible buying going on, just say there's some buying, maybe there's some buying here, because it has to happen on down moves and in these areas. We're seeing here the volume is still equal to. Then we get to a third point and the volume is greater than. Then we get to this third point here and the volume is even greater than. So equal to greater than, even if there's buying, are they winning the buying game? Is the supply being absorbed? Yes or no? Yes or no? If there's buying, and we have one of these scenarios, equal to, greater than, equal to, or aggregately high, is the volume being absorbed?
No.
No, that's correct. It's not being absorbed. There's too much supply. It's letting them know they can get by with lower prices. Okay, because they're not winning the game. This is how you can tell who's winning the game. If they were winning, it would be aggregately low, or like a no demand situation. Okay, it would be like an aggregately low. The volume would be relatively low at these areas, and that would mean they're winning the supply game. But they're not winning the supply, so therefore the supply is not being absorbed, which makes it very expensive for higher prices. It makes higher prices expensive, and it makes lower prices more probable. Okay, so looking for a quick recovery at the moment, looking for a longer term good thing right now is probably not on the cards, at least anytime soon. Maybe we need to draw that line, and that could get you in the ballpark, but right now it's just not there. So I'm going to be therefore looking bearish at this, seeing that they're losing the game, and then seeing this, even if it was a big shakeout, something's not right. There's too much volume at this final point here after an extended period of years. May 2022, March 2023. March 2024. You can see how long the absorption gain can last, right? Huge. But that's something I see in the volume. And then this bar here for the week of, this is a 2-week chart for the week of April on very high volume, and yet we're still going down and it's into an area of weakness. Most likely this bar is pushing volume. It's like giving up after the fact. It's shorting the stock. It's going to be suppressing the stock. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking this is pushing volume right there. Pushing us to help keep us down for a while until there was a more proper base, until they can fulfill those orders at the lower prices, such as the 392, 371 to 280, possibly 280. When we get there. We're not there yet, but it's on the board. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else for healthcare? United Healthcare. United Healthcare going once. United Healthcare going twice. All right. Take a screenshot here and hope this helps you. Hold on. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's a good screenshot. All right. All right, that's going to conclude today's session. I'm going to be back on Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for ChartRoom. We'll begin with our daily reading from our WordRoom. And God bless you. What's my feeling regarding the FOMC? Sorry. Jerome Powell speaking today? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. I guess maybe I would have more feelings if I knew who they were. I can have time to think about how I feel about it. Lower interest rates. Oh, generally I don't pay attention to much interest rates. I haven't paid attention to much interest rates. I know there's a lot of analysts that talk a lot about interest rates, and I do believe they have an impact, but usually not enough to trade because it's so quickly. Most of how I feel about the markets is baked into the candles. It's just something I've learned over the years that most news is temporary. Almost all news is, almost 99% of news is temporary, even the big stuff. It comes out and then the candles come back. Most of the big stuff is already baked in, like how it's based into the sentiment. The sentiment of most fundamental analysis is baked in. When I went to college, I studied fundamental analysis. And somebody stood up at the last day of class and was like, told the teacher, okay, but how do we use this to make money? And the teacher was basically said, we can't really teach you how it applies to the chart. I can just teach you how to calculate and how to understand all of these things. So, and everybody's just kind of like face palm. And down that road, fundamental analysis always leaves a bad flavor in my mouth. There's something to it. It helps us understand the bigger stuff, but most of what you need to know is baked into the candles. There's going to be stuff you're going to miss, like if you're an intra-news trader or something like that, but it's risky. It's like you pay attention right to the clock. Okay, if you think the interest rate is this, does that mean the market's going up or down? I personally stay away from that, and I've gravitated away from that many years ago, and I just haven't really paid attention to it since. If the markets are going to be feeling a certain way, generally the clues will be in the chart, and most of it will be revealed in the buying or selling campaigns, or the failed buying and selling campaigns. Like here, this one's a failed buying campaign. You can see because of what we see. You can see now. That's not to say that news won't be catalyst or triggers, but if the gun's already in the bullet and the gun's already primed and cocked back, it's not the bullet's fault. The gun's already ready to go. So I'm going to be thinking to myself that a lot of times a lot of the news events is just the trigger, but everything else is already ready to go, and it's up to us to see the clues in there. So that's how I feel about that. Do you ever look at short time periods like 1 minute or 15 minutes? Yeah, before ChartRoom, I used to do that quite a bit. And from time to time, if I'm on vacation, I'll do like maybe some scalping, stuff like that. And all I do is the same method I do, sword method, just smaller. But I make sure I have to do my homework. Sometimes I do with Forex and I take a trade here or there on 15-minute charts. But mostly I'm just a swing trader. It's just less stress in my life, especially with the side things that I got going on in my life. I got a big project I've been working on, so that takes a lot of my time. And then also, for my mind's sake, I move away from charts. I try to stay out of charts. I just try to take the big trades, and then so I can stay in a creative mode. I'm doing a lot of work on my worship album, my music album. I'm doing a lot of work on that. I'm doing a lot of writing lately, doing a lot of reading lately, and then doing the ministry stuff off to the side. I get in a mode where I don't like to look at charts so much, so I tend to do just trading as swing trader for the most part. And but all the same things I do is the same sword method, yes, on smaller time frame. But you have to go in order, Bridget. When you go in order, so it's daily. It's a monthly. You cut that in half, 2-week chart. Then cut it in half, weekly chart. Go to a 2-day chart or a 3-day chart, but I just do a 2-day chart. Then you go to a daily. So daily, 2-day, weekly, 2-weekly, monthly, and then 2-month. Those are the ones I do. And then when you go down to a daily, cut it in half. Don't just go right to an hour, especially if you're new. And even me, I can make a mistake. Go check the week, the 12-hour, then the 6, and then the 3, and then the 2 or 1. That's what I do. And when the candles stop making sense, you need to assess and look at the different oscillations, see if there's something that's more dominant, something that's more powerful, something on the 4-hour, something on the 6-hour, see what's more dominant or powerful. But if it's all the same story, then you can continue to go down the line generally without much problems. And those are the best times. But if there's a real big disparity between the daily chart and the larger chart, then you know that you're missing something. Try to investigate and see what that is. Okay. Anyone else? My opinions, thoughts regarding those things? Going once, going twice. I sure do love you guys. You have a fantastic week. I'll see you Saturday.